RBG, RBG, nigga, it's that RBG. RBG, RBG, nigga, it's that RBG. Tell me, are you down when it's going down? You got your nerve down. Talk it, put it down, homie. Tell me, are you down?
Hotep, peace and love, black power. This is RBGTV. We is RBG Buffalo, and we coming back to give you some information. Of course, last show we touched on Ma'at and the principles of Ma'at and what it meant. Today we're gonna touch on the virtues of Ma'at and how we incorporate Ma'at into our thought process, and how we maybe perhaps utilize Ma'at for the end game. You see what I'm saying? So this is definitely a show we want to be in tune with. I hope to build some chemistry and have our people really take a hold to this and incorporate this. It's vital. It's necessary for us to, utilize or get back what it is that's been cut off, that's been locked up, that's been buried away for years. I think we in the age of technology right now where we can get online and find things at a click of a button, so there's no excuse for us to be ignorant. There's none at all. It's all up to us. We have to put this work in. Nobody is gonna give us nothing. I'm sorry to tell you, it's not gonna happen. So it's vital for us to do the work our ancestors has left for us. Pick up the torch. Where's the next Malcolm coming from? The next Martin? We need to ask these people. We can't have leaders in the form of little poop stain, a Jay-Z, or anybody these people we idolize and take for value, for face value. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna happen. It can't happen. Not in the society that me and my brothers built. If you want this, if you want more of us, you want to see us in person, you can always come to the Frank Merriweather Library. We do an African Conscious workshop every Monday at 6 o'clock. Rain, hail, sleet, or snow, we there. Only time we not there is when it's a holiday. And of course, it's a public facility, so on holidays, it's not open. So we don't have it. But, that's neither here or there. We're going to get into why it is important for us to incorporate Ma'at. And of course, last week, Ryan read what it was and what Ma'at meant to us. You know what I'm saying? So it's important for us to remember what we're talking about as I go through these principles and why it's important. For us to try something new. I remember the white boy, Albert Einstein, saying that the definition of insanity is doing things over and over again, expecting different results. Now, we as African people here in the hills of this Western hemisphere is famous for that. We have things that we don't want, but we don't want to work towards to eliminate it, or we don't want to properly work towards to eliminate it. We always want to backpedal, buck dance, and compromise what it is we really have to do in society. If we not on the brink of war, if what's happening right now with our brethren and our family down there in Charleston, South Carolina, what I'm saying, is not a wake-up call towards, what can happen. I mean, we in Buffalo, New York. I mean, this is one of the most racist states in New York State. This is the South, or racist city, right? Racist city in New York State. This is the South of the East. This is the South of the East. This is how we treat it. But a lot of us make excuses on why it is we need to separate from certain individuals so we can create a society for ourselves. You know, it's important that we understand what must come first. And as a Garveyite, you know, as one who believes in one aim, one God, one destiny, I have to automatically go with self-sufficient first. You know, race first. You know, we have to make sure our house is cleaned up before we go and worry about everybody else's house. Or before we even allow people to help with our house, we need to understand that our people have to know that we can't get anything done unless we get it done ourselves. Unless we have a common understanding amongst ourselves on what it is we need to do. You know, so this is important. This is why the principles is vital for us to reincarnate or resurrect. You know, so we're going to read the 10 virtues of Maat, and hopefully you can get something out of this. And this is for the young G's, man, because the young G's ain't been given nothing from our so-called elders. And let me say this, you know, because, you know, an elder is a high title in society. To be called an elder means you are one who's wise, who haven't really picked out this fight to liberate us from this white supremacy rulership that we find ourselves under. You know what I'm saying? That's an elder. You know, people like Brother Myrie is an elder. You know, people like Brother Baba Simba, who's now an ancestor, was once an elder. You know, these are people who strive and struggle to give us the things that we need. You know, so we honor our elders and our ancestors. You know, it's important. But we cannot give that to every Joe that's coming up. You know what I'm saying? If it was a phrase to say, well, you know, if he was a young fool, he just graduated to be an old fool. And of course that happens with no good food. You know what I'm saying? With no good nourishment. You know, no new ideas. You know, working on a Ford for 40 years and then retire and wondering where your life been. You know what I'm saying, is not one you can consider an elder. Those are people who just got along to get along in society. So, you know, we really have to understand the difference between two. You know, we got a lot of old fools running around here and not enough elders. I have to tell it like it is. You know, so we're going to deal with the principles of Maat and see how we can incorporate this to get rid of foolishness, foolery. You know what I'm saying? So the first step of Maat is simply control of thought. You know what I'm saying? Controlling your thinking is vital to any movement. If you don't have a common understanding on what controlling your thinking is, then you'll never be able to achieve the 9 principles that we're going to try to break down to you. You know, understanding that liberation is the key. And having that mentality of I have to always be free or get free is a mentality that will one day allow us to get free. Now, you know, there's all kinds of forms of freedom. Like, you know, one would say, you know, one who's in bondage, that's physical freedom. You know, one who's trying to free themselves from an economic situation, that's economic freedom. You know, or one who's trying to raise their mentality that doesn't subject themselves to white rulership or the dictatorship of Eurocentric thought, such as philosophy, Plato, Socrates. You know, one of the greatest books we got is from George G.M. James, which is Stolen Legacy. You know, this brother, the information he put in this book will literally untopple, unshaken all your Masonic societies, your Greek societies, the philosophers that was taught, you know, the Hippocrates and all of these people who didn't have anything to do with what they were speaking about. You know, if anything, they got it from our ancestors. And the minute we realize that is the minute that we'll take honor and respect in ourselves. The title, the title of Stolen Legacy, on the front cover of Stolen Legacy, it clearly says that Greek philosophy is a stolen Egyptian philosophy. You know, it clearly says it right there on the title. This is something that can't be denied. If we Sankofa a little bit, we will get this. But this is definitely a must read. And of course, my book is beat up because these are one of my Bibles, one of the Bibles that I live by, that give me a foundation of truth. So I recommend that book to anybody. You know, go out there and get that book. The book is definitely a must read and a must hand down to the babies and the warriors and the liberators that's coming up today. So, you know, we're going to give our shade of that. But, you know, speaking about control of thought is imperative. It's important. I think we have all kinds of institutions and things that clutter the thought process. People talk about fasting and like, well, you know, I'm about to stop eating for a while, you know, but they rarely think about fasting and mentality and trying to put balance in the thought process that will give them overall liberation at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Your actions are dictated off your thoughts. We have a prison system that's filled up with people who just wasn't thinking at the time, simply because they didn't know how to think. People, the schools that we've been going to, or the schools that we've been forced to go to, hasn't taught us how to strategically get us out this situation. You know what I'm saying? So it's important that, of course, we control our thought, how we think, how we, you know, view people. What is our mentality, our value systems, all of that runs with control of thought. And of course, second one is control of actions. Now, if you can't control your thoughts, you can't control your actions. You know what I'm saying? Actions, your thoughts, your actions are dictated off your thoughts. You know what I'm saying? And one has to come before the next. You know, we often do things off of impulse. You know, we're emotional people. We wear our emotions on our sleeves. You know, somebody says something about black people, we have to get up there with no power. You know, just completely disagree with it. You know, and what we talking about is strategically controlling our thought process, so our actions will fall in line with those thoughts. How are we thinking? Why are we reacting? Who's making us react? Our reaction are controlled or dictated by driven forces that we have no knowledge of. You know, these are the things that we should be asking. You know, the people in leadership who controls or who dictates the actions in terms of when things happen, you know, should be questioned too. You know, because a lot of these people is just phony fakery, fools, and people who's been paid off by the same people who create the situation for us. You know what I mean? So we have to really understand how we've been swindled and hoodwinked and bamboozled, led astray and run amok. You know what I'm saying? So it's important for us to control our actions. Our actions is the thing that our babies see. When we coming up and we doing good things, you know, for our community, we doing good things for our family and the people that we around. We constantly trying to raise them up. You know, this is a win-win situation for both parties, not just our community, but the babies that come up because they try to emulate that. You know what I mean? We have devices, of course, that takes us away from that. Too much cable TV, too much WBLK, you know, and everything else that takes us off that path is the things that we should be fasting for. We should be controlling those thought process, so that way our actions will align in a realm of leadership, of a realm of infinite possibilities. Where, you know, what are we thinking? We should, our thought process should be higher than any bird can fly, because anything up under that will come virtuously easy. You know, so this should be our program. This should be our mentality. Number 3 is devotion of purpose. Now, this is one thing that, you know, black people have problem with. You know, our purpose, or the way we devote our purpose to whatever we devote our purpose to, has been lacking. And I mean that to say that black people have too many unfinished projects. You know what I'm saying? We sought out for a purpose, and then some way along the path, we get diverted from that path, and the project stays on the table unfinished. And these are vital projects that our black society need to overcome some of this hardship, some of this pain, some of this sorrow, turmoil. You know what I'm saying? So we need to better execute the things that we sought to do. If it's business, we need to make sure that we ain't stopping until this business is done. We will take no for an answer. You know what I'm saying? And we're uncompromising in every aspect in terms of what it is we need to give us nutrients. This is how our attitude or our ability should be. Ma'at, or these principles, can save one's life in dealing with situations that we may necessarily don't know how to get ourselves out of. Ma'at needs to be incorporated. We need to bring back Ma'at. So we calling on Ma'at today. And of course, number 4 is having faith in the ability of the master teacher to teach the truth. This is important. We need to start seeking out wise men, those who are fresh, those who are passionate and filled with wisdom. It's important for us to do that. Go seek these people, because these people, are books. Don't you know that they say that for every elder that dies, it's a library that goes with it? We don't take the time and asking our elders questions why they're here. And in doing so, when they pass on, it's a whole abundance of information that get lost. We were never like that before 1492. Before Ama'afa. It was common in our tradition before the good ship Jesus for us to have an oracle, or one who will give us the wisdoms and the stories of our warriors, of our losers, our political stories. It was an elder who would sit around a campfire and tell us our destiny and what it is we need to do. But that has been long gone. We have a Masonic society of men who kind of miss the understanding on what this is about. When we say free my son, we saying free Mason. And we looking for these people to do what they need to do and take upon apprentices. Make them into craftsmen, so they later on can become the masters that they were born to be. So in the essence, we have to bring responsibility to those who have the tools to do these things for us. So we're going to keep it moving, and we're going to deal with number 6, having faith in myself to build the truth. Now, closed mouth don't get fed. Now, we got any truth, regardless of who like it, or, who's going to agree with it, or, what they got to say about it. It's important for us to speak that truth. It's never respectable. Nobody respects a man or a person who can't say what's on their mind. I think the people that we look towards as leaders are looked towards because they spoke up at a time when it wasn't popular to speak up. Like, in the 1940s, 1950s, and the 1960s, when Elijah Muhammad told the world that the white man was the devil. This is something a lot of people couldn't deny, simply because the actions of these people that we supposed to be rubbing elbows with was only the actions of the ones, were only the actions of a descriptive devil. What I mean by descriptive devil, we're not talking about pantyhose, red, or pitchforks, and eternal fire. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about one who will bring chaos, one who will bring disorder or confusion to a group of people, so they're not able to rise up and be the gods and goddesses or the kings and queens that they are. You see what I'm saying? So this is necessary for our enemies to keep us this way. You know what I'm saying? To keep us closed mouth. You know, yes, massa, no boss, you know, and then we get all upset and go home and take it out on our families because we're psychologically trained to not do anything to the people that do the things to us or harm us in such a way that we can't get our lives together. You know what I'm saying? So this is important. We need to go through that. Number 7 is being free from resentment under the experience of persecution. That means if, you know, we understand that what we do in terms of raising our people up that don't fit with the rulership or the dictatorship of those who supposed to get us out of this, meaning like, you know, the government per se, or we'll say like, for an example, people who will be persecuted for just trying to raise his people up. You know, we seen it happen to Malcolm. We seen it happen to the Black Panthers with the COINTELPRO measures. We seen it happen to Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey didn't do anything but try to bring his people a self of dignity in themselves. You know, let them know that anything that the European can do, you can do, if not better. You know what I'm saying? And what was he? He was persecuted for that. He was, you know, jailed for mail fraud and ultimately, you know, kicked out of the United States of America. You know what I'm saying? The Christians are finding the same story within their Jesus story. You know, this is somebody who tried to heal the people. This is somebody who tried to bring warmness to the people. You know, not that, you know, but at the same time, you know, still a revolutionary. You know, Jesus was the one who didn't hesitate to pick up a sword. You know, remind you in some of your chapters, Jesus say, you know, think that I not come send peace but a sword, or telling his disciples to go trade in everything they have for 2 swords. This is somebody who's prepared for battle, who's prepared to fight the higher beast, you know what I'm saying, for that old liberation. So, you know, this is the Jesus aspect, the revolutionary Black Messiah Jesus that, you know, your Sunday churches can't give you. You know, that Nat Turner Jesus, you know, that Denmark Vesey Jesus, you know, that old good old religion, you know what I'm saying, that warrioristic religion, you know, Black folks once had amongst themselves. You know, this is something that they can't have, you know. So this is why we have to incorporate Ma'at within the system, the whole scheme of things. You know, it can be under like camouflage, because Ma'at is in the Bible. You can find Ma'at in the Bible. Verses, so many verses speak on the principles of Ma'at in terms of what man or how men and women are supposed to carry themselves in society. Okay, number 8 is being free from resentment under the experience of experience of wrong. Like, you know, in life, we're gonna make mistakes, you know, but our mistakes can't be so big to the point where it takes us off our journey in terms of being free. You know what I'm saying? We should really understand that plight, you know, understand that freedom is necessary in any fashion. And understanding what real freedom is even more necessary. And I think with the principles of Ma'at, it'll put us on the path of really understanding that righteousness. Number 8 is cultivating the ability to distinguish between real, right and wrong. Cultivating the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. What is real and what is fake? It's like the Matrix movie when Morpheus came with those 2 pills and he told Neo that, you know, one of them is you can go in Maryland, and then the other one they'll bring you into a realm of what the real world was about. You know, and I think that this principle speaks to that. You know, do we live off of a foundation of truth, or is it a foundation of falsehood? we have to ask ourselves, is the people that we look for as guidance, is these people real or fake? Is they for our benefit or not? Has change came about with their position, or has it been just more of the same old? You know what I'm saying? So this is what we have to really start asking ourselves. That number 10, last but not least, is cultivating the ability to distinguish the real from the unreal. What is real and what is fake? You know what I'm saying? What is right and what is wrong? You know, both of these two principles is one of the main principles that we need to focus on in terms of knowing what my I is and who my I is. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of wrong that we maybe encounter on a daily basis is the one that cultivates our mentality and controls our thinking. You know, when we see wrong promoted from the highest level, we have the tendency to maybe make excuses on why the wrong is right. You know, so it's important for us to understand these principles. You know, my I is truth, justice, and understanding my I, really practicing my I, will liberate us from the conditions that we in. It will help with our families. So we just saying that, you know, if we want to get involved with a society or people such as my I, we'll say, we'll say Sankofa, we'll say go back and fetch. Go back and get all the principles that has been left to you. Who, you know, study who put you in this position and why it was important to put you in this situation. Another book that I might recommend is How White Folks Got So Rich, The Untold Story of White Supremacy. This is another book that we must get to understand on why we need Sankofa. This book explains the breakdown on why it was important for us to be slaves. You know, why it's important for us to have a LeBron James and who it really benefits. You know, all the things we created, you know, it has been stolen or taken from us. So this was a show on my eye, and I thank y'all for joining us. Before I go, I'd like to say that you can join us at the Frank Merriweather Library every Monday at 6:00 p.m. You know, this was a Truth, Justice, and Reciprocity RBGTV. And I like to say peace and love and hotel.
RBG, RBG, nigga, it's that RBG. RBG, RBG, nigga, it's that RBG. Tell me, are you down?